Alright guys, it's June 5th, and if you pick up on the clues, that's 6.5. Today Federal's doing something that I think is a really big deal and is worthy of a real conversation. They're releasing their plus peak high pressure 80,000 PSI ammo in 6.5 Creedmoor. They're going to do a handful of SKUs in this. The one that we have some ammo of today is the 130 grain terminal ascent. It's a hunting round. High pressure is a big deal, and it's going to continue to be a big deal. The conversation, in my experience, really started to become a thing, call it 5 years ago, maybe a little longer than that for people that really knew. The United States military decided that they wanted their existing weapons platforms to deliver more energy downrange for a variety of reasons. They went through a little bit of a test of, do we try different cartridges? Do we make some big changes to the entire weapon systems? What they ultimately got to, and I think mostly because of logistics and wanting to keep the same weapons platforms, is, yeah, just crank the pressure up. Most ammo that any of us have ever shot, in a rifle specifically, has been, call it 60,000 PSI. There's some stuff that might be a little less, maybe a little more, but roughly 60,000. What testing showed is if they just turn that up to 80,000, they got a lot more juice, and some other cool things happened, and we'll talk about it. So, to me, what this means, Federal rolling out 6.5 Creedmoor, is that high pressure is here. It's going to grow. It's not going anywhere. The United States government is buying a lot of it. I know that I saw last week there was some sort of contract between Department of War and Federal for this plus peak style case, and I will call it brass in this video. It's not brass. It's a steel product that is then zinc plated, and it's super robust, super hard. It can handle a ton of pressure. They're releasing it in 80,000. The weak point here is not going to be the case. Don't do anything stupid, but it is an incredibly tough case. It can take a lot of pressure. It can be reloaded. We're working on dies for that. You got to reload it a little bit differently. Maybe you can't reload it as many times as brass, but it can be done. And it's a big deal. Out of this, we've been out here shooting just long enough to get the rifle zeroed. A little about the rifle, tip to tail. It's got a Maverick Gen 2 on it. That's a 30 cal K-can. It's got a PXT 20-inch barrel from Proof. They just rolled these out a couple weeks ago. They have a take on gain twist that really goes to another level. It's an exponential twist. So this is an 8-twist barrel out here, but it probably starts at something like 250 twist or 300 twist or something outrageous that allows the bullet to come up to twist more gradually. They have a different rifling profile in it that is conducive to that. Their claim is that on barrels it'll increase your life depending on length by as much as double in long platforms like 26 inches. It's a really important part of the high pressure story because the problem with high pressure is it's going to eat up your barrel. So if you're a person that's worried about that, you turn a 6.5 Creedmoor that might be good for 3,000 rounds or whatever into something where, 2,000 is a scary place when you go to the high pressure. And I haven't validated those numbers, but the number shrinks meaningfully. The PXT goal is for you to be able to go from standard pressure to high pressure and keep that life, or stay inside standard pressure and dramatically improve it. There are also some accuracy claims here that I haven't validated, but I know people that have done that testing. There's more video on that kind of stuff coming. Somebody's talked to me about it. They've got a really cool barrel here. You're gonna learn more about PXT over time. I've got an Impact NBK ultralight. This is new from Tate. It is his take on an ultralight hunting action. It's like 25 ounces. It is still steel. He likes the steel for the robustness and how it manages wear over time versus titanium. It's super cool. I'm glad to have one of these. I think Tate killed it with this. And one of the really important things to understand about Impact is over the last 10 years, we've all become accustomed to everything has a pre-fit barrel available. Before Impact, that wasn't a thing. And he kind of took a huge leap when he started doing the impacts and holding a guaranteed headspace. Did it all the way from the beginning. Impact's a big deal. It's the winningest action PRS ever, as many as all of them combined since 2020. So that's the new ultralight, the new hotness from them. The stock right now is a Manners Night Stalker. That's going to change. I've got a MDT DRT that should show up today. that this will ultimately go in, because I want to cut a little more weight. But this is a cool, collapsible buttstock night hunter type setup. A little more weight than I want, but Manners makes a good product, and this is a nice one for now. It's in our hybrid rings with a Collis K318, one of the new refined ones for this year. I like this scope, I like the form factor of it, and I like that it fits our scope cam, which will be relevant to you later. I've got a Garmin on the gun. We've got like 25 rounds through this thing, and the speed has been out of a 20-inch 6.5 Creedmoor, like bang on 30-40. We'll get some SD and ES numbers for the whole string of fire when we're done with this, everything we shot today. But the fact that we are at 30-40 with a 130 grain projectile out of a 20-inch barrel and factory ammo is spicy. We thought about making this video, is 6.5 Creedmoor killing the 6.5 PRC? It's a little ridiculous. I wanted to have a conversation, not clickbait. We might try it in an A/B test. You never know. Or we'll do that when we reload this. But high pressure is the real deal. We're going to do some shooting on target. Again, we shot some through it, got a little comfortability with it, got zeroed. I was shocked that the recoil impulse of the high pressure is not dramatically different. It's a little faster, and again, I'm shooting with a full suppressor here for your audio quality. If I'd have the brake on the Maverick, this would be super soft shooting. Watch everything. It's not 30% more recoil. Federal's talking about it being basically the same. Again, I don't have a sled to set this up. This is relatively light. I've got a suppressor on the end. You're going to see some of the recoil through the scope cam. But it's pleasant to shoot. It's a little bit, the first time you pull the trigger, you might, hit the safety squints a little bit. But everything I know about what Federal's got here in the Plus Peak, they would be my betting horse on who wins a majority of this high pressure race. Federal with the Plus Peak nailed something that's really important in internal ballistics. So in any brass case, when you pull the trigger, primer hits, primer flashes onto the powder, powder goes boom, projectile goes. But another thing very important that happens is that case expands to the chamber walls, and under that high pressure you get a lot of grip and a lot of friction between the case and the chamber wall. Of the high pressure cases, I believe Federal has done a better job than the others in making sure that their case grips that chamber wall as well. Because if you don't, what you end up getting into is a place where way more pressure gets onto the back of your bolt lugs and into the abutments inside the receiver. Low round count may not be as big of a deal, but on a high round count rifle, that can turn into something that creates premature wear inside the action. And especially if you're shooting a carbine or a gas gun or something like that, that can also become super important as you're managing the reciprocating mass. So I think that Plus Peak is pretty sweet, and it is reloadable. We're having to develop a custom die for it, mostly to do with managing the neck tension. If you try to, with brass cases, let's say we want 2 to 3 thousandths of neck tension. Some people like less, some people like more, whatever. But 2 to 3 thousandths of neck tension in this is going to destroy your projectile. So your neck tension has to be different. We are typically trying to get, when we reload, like a 0.5 thousandth of neck tension. We also know that the window on neck tension with this stuff is pretty small. So in a brass case, I can reload 1 thou, and if I have a case where I've done something stupid and used the wrong mandrel and I've got like 5 thou of neck tension, you're probably still going to be okay. You might start to get like a little ringing on the ogive of the projectile, but you're going to be mostly fine. If you try to seat this with 2 thou of neck tension, it's going to destroy that projectile. You're going to see massive deformation around the ogive, and it may not go in at all. So the window on this is 0.5 thousandth plus or minus a couple tenths. We are coming out with a die that will have custom sized mandrels for that, as well as custom necks inside the die, because we want to work this neck the least possible. You can reload this stuff, but you might not be able to reload it 10 or 15 or 20 times like some people can do with brass. Fewer times, but it can be done. We're really interested, and that'll be the next video in this series, is what can we do when we reload this stuff. Because if I'm seeing 30-40 out of factory ammo with a 130, I want to know can I take this 20-inch 6.5 Creedmoor and shoot the same projectile at the same speed as, let's say, a 26-inch 6.5 PRC? I think it's very reasonable. We're going to get close to that, so it'll be the next video. Let me know if you have any questions about that. But let's get to shooting. Again, we shot this enough to get 0, put some heat into it. I shot one group on a swinging target to see what would happen. It's a little wider than I wanted it to be because it was a swinging target, but the water line at 300 yards was like 1.5 inches. Pretty pleased with that. I've got 2 fresh painted steel targets down there that we're going to get some groups on. We'll go through that and we'll talk a little bit more when we get done with that part. All right, so let's see. I should be on target. All good here. I'm going to start with that left target. Put 5 rounds on it, see what happens. And again, guys, I'm at 300 yards here. See if I pull that one and it groups on the second, or if we stay. All right, that's 5 rounds at 300 yards. That group's okay. Little bit walky up and down, but again, I'm guessing that's not going to be decidedly different than like a 1-inch group. Let's give the rifle just a minute, because again, you know, we're pretty heat soaked here. I want to give the ammo every opportunity possible to shoot small. At 80,000 psi, we're creating a lot of heat, and that's something to pay attention to. All right, we got 5 more rounds in. I'm going to go to the next target and get those 5 in. I'll adjust that a little bit. Let's see, I was probably 3/10 right, so see if we can get right on the dot. Yeah, this hand was right on the dot. Right on the dot. Let's see. Stack them up. That was really good. And at 300 yards, we're going to walk down and look at that one. That's like a 2-inch group or less. I mean, they're stacked right on top of one another. And honestly, some of that floating around in the first group, I'll absolutely blame myself for that in getting into a good rhythm here. But yeah, I mean, this is a real deer. There's a little wind, a little vertical, a little loose on the trigger nut, but I think we probably had the ES jumped up a little there. I guess we had 1 round that was a little bit goofy. We'll get that sometimes. We'll walk down there. Let's see what we find. With some of this high pressure, one of the things that I'm looking forward to is how this bleeds into different design. Like PXT from Proof is a downstream effect of the idea that high pressure was going to happen from a military standpoint. And there became this arms race, and like I remember when Bartline, and this has been years now, rolled out the Mod 400 BB or whatever that coating was, and it was a different barrel steel that was meant to last longer. And now there's like the GNB 200 and the Armad and all of these exotic steels that are super resistant to the extreme forces that you find inside a barrel. But you know, as they figure those out, and then Proof with PXT, and you know, I think there are some other people that are trying to also follow on to that or find a piece of that pie as well. And you know, as typically happens in product development, there's some convoluted stuff that happens. I think we're going to continue to see an evolution of what happens with these cases. You know, Federal's done a heck of a good job in developing a case that is not more expensive than brass, which is massive. I think there's even a reality in which it's a touch less expensive because brass is an expensive metal, and the process to create it is not dramatically different. So there's not a huge amount of retooling. We're not having to build new production lines to make it happen. I'm curious as to what's going to happen with the actual projectiles. With this high pressure, is there going to be some change in what bullets look like, and what do they need to look like, and how does the extreme force of high pressure change what they need to do? I truly don't know where that goes, but I remember sitting and having conversations during COVID and in the period that followed it, when the firearm market was white hot, and every firearm company was basically sitting around, especially the big boys, saying, look, engineering team, figure out all the cool things you can, but if you think we're going to stop production when we've got a gazillion dollars in units in back order, you're crazy. Really cool things were developed during that period, and part of them were to do with what we're seeing here in high pressure. So I'm very bullish on the firearm market and what we're going to develop and the new stuff that we'll see over the next handful of years. And high pressure is one of the core tenets of that. I also think the way that electronics are going to move in firearms is going to continue, whether that's with optics or peripherals, or like NDT did that electronic trigger. Like there are all kinds of ways that that's going to happen. There's going to be customization that's very different. But this is a cool one. All right, so 3 groups that we shot. We're at 300 yards. One was a swinging target. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a little wider than you would want to see a group, but understand as I'm shooting, the target's doing this. What I'm seeing here is a water line that's less than a minute tall. Not bad here. Then the second one I shot, and you guys saw me shoot this one. We got a little bit more dispersion than I wanted to see. That's probably, let's call that 4 inches tall and 2.5 inches wide. I'll take some of that blame on me as a shooter, you know, getting into a good rhythm on this and shooting a group. But this one, I mean, you got this little guy, and still here we're at 2.5, 3 inches wire to wire. But that's 4 of those shots at 300 yards that are like 1.25 inches top to bottom. For factory ammo, I'm pretty pleased with that. You know, if you've got this delusion that you're consistently going to pick up factory ammo and it's going to shoot a half a minute, that's not real in most cases. You'll certainly get some good groups once in a while, but I am pleased with the way that went. I think that this is very much the big kicking the door open on something really important with high pressure. And you know, Federal rolled out 7 backcountry a year or year and a half ago. Somebody in the comments will correct me with aggression. But 7 backcountry came out, and I think, and I don't know this, but I believe that was Federal's kind of, let's see how this goes. Are consumers going to do anything ridiculous with it? Are they going to like it? What's the response going to be in a lot of different metrics? Can we make enough of this? Is the brass or the case going to be consistent from lot to lot? So 7 backcountry came out, and it's been on the market for long enough that I think they got comfortable, and they're like, all right, let's go all the way. Because the 2 cartridges that sell more than all the others by a long shot are 9mm and 5.56 or 223, you know, whatever. But then after that, it's 6.5 Creedmoor. And that's also kind of your standard bearer on common consumer cartridges or common commercial cartridges in the United States. So Federal went all in on high pressure in this one with 6.5 Creedmoor based on what they learned in the 7 backcountry. I would, and again, I don't know any of this, but I would be shocked if we did not see further expansion of this Plus Peak line by Federal. And I don't know if they'll immediately go to 5.56. Obviously, that's one that you would want to go to because of the volume of it. And the United States government is aggressively pursuing. There was like the high car contract, which is, I'll mess up the acronym, but basically high pressure uppers for M4 platforms. That's going to be a big deal. I don't know if they'll go there. I don't know if they'll roll out 308. I have no idea what high pressure is going to do when you start shoving it into magnums. Like, who knows what a high pressure 300 norm or 300 PRC looks like. I don't know that we'll see that soon, because that's a lot of spicy. But in these smaller cartridges, your 5.56, your 6.5 Creedmoor, your 308, 7 backcountry is a long action, standard body. The performance we can get out of them is crazy. So I'm looking forward, as we kind of progress through the summer, to reloading these 6.5 Creedmoor Plus Peak cases. From you guys, how fast do you think we can make them go? Do you have concerns with this? Is this something you would pursue or reload? Does this change the way you think about 6.5 Creedmoor as a utility hunting cartridge? I think it was already probably one of the more useful hunting cartridges in the game. I think for me, before this, and maybe even still with this, depending on what happens when we reload, it was probably 6.5 PRC for me. If I could build one rifle to go hunt anything anywhere in North America, it doesn't cover everything perfectly, but it covers a lot of things really well. Maybe 6.5 Creedmoor does this now, because with the Plus Peak cases or in the high pressure, you can really crank it up and conceivably push something into 140 class, well over 3,000 in a pretty compact package. Or at the same time, you can go to standard pressure and shoot something lighter at outrageous speeds. This is going to go cool places. Kudos to Federal. We are really fortunate to be in that conversation about how can we make this available to a reloader. Again, more on that coming soon. But that's high pressure. It's 6.5. Federal's here. 6.5 Creedmoor, Plus Peak, high pressure. And if you've got any more questions about this, you've got comments, things that you love, things that you hate, things that you just are dying to say out loud on the internet, drop them in the comments. Let us know.